let's take a look at top 64. Some really interesting stuff there. Alright, let's take a look at top 32. Right. YCS Orlando has just concluded, and with it we've gotten our first peek into what the Supreme Darkness format is going to be looking like for the next maybe few months or so. This was a major event with thousands of people, so it is a big indicator as to what we're going to be looking at in this format. So let's dive right in. Let's take a look at top 64. Alright, you can see like a decent concentration. Let's look at top 32. Right, yup. If you can't tell from these two pie charts, Ryzeal isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. It is by far the best deck in the run. I don't think that we really needed this YCS to show us that anyway, but yeah, and the fact is, it's taking up major amounts of the pie chart. That being not just Ryzeal, but also Malice. I'm actually quite surprised at Malice's performance in this event because a lot of people were downplaying it. Even I thought it wasn't really the best positioned going into a format where Meows and Lancia were going to be present in the format, but this YCS has shown me that Malice still has a place in this event and in this metagame. In this video, I wanted to go over what happened at YCS Orlando, my predictions and how they stacked up versus what actually happened, and what we can hope to expect in the few coming months, and a little bit of stuff about what I think is going to happen at YCS Birmingham, which I will be going to. Here is my prediction list for what I thought was going to happen at YCS Orlando. As we can see here, I predicted right that Ryzeal Fiendsmith was going to be the winner, but like, who really thought anything else was going to win the YCS? There wasn't really any other contender. The sheer dominance shows why Ryzeal Fiendsmith is the best deck by far. Malice was also a strong contender, being the second best deck in the format, and making it to top 4. A very good deck and a good pick for this format. In terms of the Mitsurugi deck, it got second place. I think that that's an overperformance. I originally thought it was just going to make top 8. Tenpai and Mermail both made it to top 64 with a couple tops, which was pretty good, but okay, Memento was a deck I was majorly wrong about. This deck did not perform at all. Hopefully it'll perform at Birmingham. And in terms of Fiendsmith, I was actually wrong because this did better than just 1 or 2 tops. It got like 7, I believe, when it came to top 64, so good on that deck. As Amina White Forest, I was very wrong on. This deck did nothing, saw none of it at all, despite all of the hype. Mimigul was on feature. It sounded in the top, but I just wanted to mention it. It didn't perform, but I saw it on feature, so that was pretty cool. Crystron didn't perform either, didn't get the top. Just, you can't really predict when these things are just tier 0 and will just like completely like warp the format into having basically 2 decks or nothing. I love Crystron. The deck is quite cool, but it's just simply not that good in this format. When it comes to just all of these 1 or 2 top decks, I was mostly wrong because the format is far less diverse than I guess most people were expecting, kinda. Like, I didn't think it would be almost tier 0 levels of bad. I thought, like, there would at least be some room for rogue decks, but this event, there was no such case. Overall, I think my predictions were pretty spot on, but it was pretty telegraphed how the event would go. So I'm not going to give myself too much credit, and I definitely predicted that the format would be way more diverse than it actually was. I wanted to go over my prediction tier list for the Supreme Darkness format, see where I went wrong and what stuff I got right. Firstly, the top tier is generally right. Ryzeal Fiendsmith is the absolute best deck in the format, by far. That part wasn't close. Malice Fiendsmith is also a good deck, especially showing up in YCS Orlando. I think it's the strongest variant, by far. I think the Bestial version's good, but I think this one just has that higher skill ceiling that edges it out. I'm generally happy with what decks are in the top tier, as well as the order I place them in. Except that I would probably put the Fiendsmith Tempai build above just regular Tempai. However, a deck I think I underestimated was the Mitsurugi Ryziel deck. It was unexplored at the time of this, so I didn't know too well. It's definitely not as good as the Fiendsmith Ryziel deck. Definitely not. But it can still compete and is definitely at least second or third place compared to it. The only really other criticism of my list I'd put is my placement of Mermail. That should have been in solid decks. Like, for sure, Mermail is such a crazy deck. I think solid decks was a pretty inaccurate tier. Yubel, Labyrinth, I overrated them both, and I should have put stuff like Mermail in there in the solid decks tier. And now for a question that maybe a lot of you have on your minds when it comes to this format. Are we in a tier 0 format right now? Ryziel, in terms of representation, has taken up a major amount in terms of the top cut for this YCS, and is this indication that we're going to be in another tier 0 format after we just left the Snake Eye one? Are we currently in a tier 0 format? I think it depends. On one hand, yes, in terms of the raw numbers at this specific YCS, absolutely, it's tier 0. But I don't necessarily think that this is the best indicator. This is an American YCS, and American YCSs are famous for always having the best deck, always be more represented. It's a more rich and affluent country, so naturally people are more so going to be playing the most expensive best deck. And typically, America doesn't really play rogue decks, or at least the top players don't, right? There's a reason why Fiendsmith Kashtira was a European invention by Raiden Trade. Just Americans normally know what the meta is, and they stick to it, whether it's more optimal or not. YCS Orlando kind of fits the bill for a typical American YCS with a whole lot of representation for the best deck, and rogue decks kind of getting snuffed out. So don't worry. I don't think it's going to be a tier 0 format. I could very well be wrong. Birmingham could be like 100% Brazil, for all I know. Hopefully not. Hopefully, like, some rogue decks get through. I would liken this format more to a Dragon Rulers and Spellbooks sort of format back in, I think it was 2013, rather than just a strictly tier 0 format. So I do think there's room for some sort of diversity, even in a bleak format like this. Let's talk for a minute about what I expect to be happening in the future. YCS Birmingham, by the time I'm recording this, is under a week away now, and people have been preparing for this format for quite a while. I think that at this European YCS, we're going to see more Rogue at Top Cut. Not necessarily because like we're in a healthier, more balanced format, but simply because of the numbers. There's going to be more people playing Rogue at this event than there would have been at Orlando, and so that means that naturally more people will slip through the cracks. And in addition, I think that we are going to see more Fiendsmith Malice. I think that that deck is the best variant of Malice. I think by far. The Bestial version is cool and it's pretty good, but I think that the Bestials do not do nearly as much as the Fiendsmith engine does. The Fiendsmith engine is just insane. It does everything that you'd really want an engine to do. It's recursion, grind game, it's generic, it enables your combos. Nightmare Griffin is a scary card to be in the format, especially when you can link it off into a Requiem. I hope that some rogue decks come through, but we could all just hop on the Ryziel bandwagon over here in Europe, so it's really up in the air as to whether these results are going to stay solid through YCSs. So there's my sort of review on Orlando and what I think is going to be coming next for Birmingham. As I've already mentioned before, I'm going to be at YCS Birmingham, so I'm going to have first-hand experience of what that event is like, and I'll probably have a vlog for it out too, if you guys want to see that. So I guess comment below your thoughts on how the format's going, and with that, shine out.